Hello, my name is Colton Steiner, and thank you for tuning in. Today's going to be a little bit different of an episode as I try and cover both the Ohio State Buckeyes and the Cleveland Browns, because a lot of went down this weekend. Ohio State won the Big Ten championship, but they didn't get it into the college football playoff. I will share my thoughts on that, and I will talk about the Cleveland Browns and what else could go wrong, because it's the Browns. So, let's see what happens. They were the best team going into that week. We learned last year that you don't have to win a championship, conference championship, to get into the playoff. Ohio State still has a few wins, a few more better wins than Alabama. This week it was a highlighted and highly anticipated return of Josh Gordon. No! Today's going to be a little bit longer of an episode, as you can probably tell. A lot to go about. I'm getting over a cold. My voice is slowly coming back, so bear with me with that. Ohio State was, people say, snubbed out of the Final Four despite winning the Big Ten championship against Wisconsin this Saturday. But here's the thing. Alabama wasn't playing for an SEC championship because they lost to Auburn. And Auburn got whooped up on by Georgia in the SEC championship. So let's talk about the Final Four. Number one, Clemson. Not surprising at all. They destroyed Miami. Dismantled them. Not even surprised. They were the best team going into that week. So, number one is Clemson. Not well-deserved. As expected, they got the number one seed. Number two is right behind them with Oklahoma, playing a TCU team and keeping it close for the first three quarters, but then Baker Mayfield showing how good he is and why I think he is the Heisman favorite and the person most likely to win the Heisman Trophy this year, as they just ran over TCU, and they got the second seed in the college football playoff. Number three is Georgia, and as I stated, they beat Auburn in the SEC championship. So the top three teams just destroyed their opponent in their championship game. Doesn't surprise me, as those were the top three. I expected those three teams to beat the top three teams as they were. So, doesn't surprise me at all. The fourth team is where it gets tricky. So going into the fourth seed, it was Wisconsin to start the week. They were 12-0, undefeated season. If they beat Ohio State, you can't leave them out. They are Big Ten championships, won the Big Ten championship, and they're an undefeated team. So you can't leave them out. But that didn't happen, as they got beat by Ohio State 27-21, and people were like, "Okay, Ohio State won the Big Ten championship; they should get in." That's how it should be. Alabama wasn't playing for the SEC championship because they lost in the last week to Auburn, and they didn't have a good strength of schedule. They didn't play. They scheduled Mercer at the end of the year, and Ohio State had a tougher schedule than Alabama, but this is my thought. Okay, last year, Ohio State lost to Penn State at Penn State, and they weren't able to play for the Big Ten championship, but they still got into the playoff. We learned last year that you don't have to win a championship, conference championship, to get into the playoff. Now, this has been a big debate the last few years, because in 2014, when Ohio State dismantled and ran over Wisconsin 59-0, but TCU was a higher seed. They jumped TCU because TCU didn't play for their conference championship because they didn't have one, and Ohio State got in over them because they won a conference championship. Now, a lot of talk about why Ohio State was able to get that despite TCU being ranked higher. My thought, Ohio State losing their starting quarterback, yet to boot, goes into a game against a number 13 Wisconsin team who was a really good team, Heisman hopeful Melvin Gordon, and they just shut that team down, scored 59 points, and just flattened them. That is why they got in 2014, and they won the championship. Last year, Ohio State plays Penn State middle of the season, near the end of the season, 3/4 of the way, loses to Penn State, and they aren't able to play for the conference championship. And Penn State plays for the conference championship, wins, and then Ohio State gets in. Now, there was a lot of debate about that. I personally didn't think Ohio State deserved to get in. They got ruled on by Clemson, 31, I think, to nothing. I don't know. I try and forget that game as I'm a Buckeye fan because that was just ugly. That was ugly. I digress. But let's talk about this year. I've talked a lot about the last 3 years, but this year is a big. We learned what the committee likes. Then this year, Ohio State still has a few more better wins than Alabama. Alabama didn't have a tough schedule as they played Mercer at the end of the year, and Ohio State played teams like Michigan State, Wisconsin, Oklahoma, Penn State, all these tough teams, and Alabama really didn't have that tough of a schedule. But with that being said, it comes down to the losses. Alabama, they beat teams they should have. They did their work. They whooped up on Mercer as they should have, but their loss came to Auburn at the end of the season. You got to keep in mind the losses when it comes to that. Now, when it goes to Ohio State, I leave the Oklahoma loss out of it. That was the second week of the season against a good Oklahoma team, and an Oklahoma team that's now in the 2 seed in the playoff. So for me, I look at that Iowa loss. They lost to Iowa by 30 points. You cannot you cannot overlook that. That's the reason Ohio State got out. That's the reason Alabama was able to get that 4th spot. The losses, Auburn is a better loss than Iowa, because that's the big thing there. If Ohio State doesn't lose to Iowa, they're in. No question about it. Now, another team you could argue is USC, who also had the tougher schedule out of all 3 of those teams, of Alabama and Ohio State. They won their championship. Now, why didn't they get in? Well, it's because of they did lose 2 games, but so did Ohio State. So there's a lot of stuff you have to argue about, and when it comes down to it, the committee just liked Alabama better. So it'll be interesting to see how Alabama does against that really good Clemson team and that Clemson defense. So that'll be an interesting thing to get into. Now let's talk about the Cleveland Browns. See, I think it's kind of funny when I go about talking about a winning Ohio State team who has won 11 games this year, and 10 games in the regular season, 11 overall after the Big Ten championship. But then you go to the Browns, who haven't won a game since last year in almost 360 some days, 340 days. I don't know. It'll be 360 days till we have the anniversary of our last win. But let's move on. So we were playing the San Diego Chargers, who we got our last win against. And now, it's interesting to me. The Cleveland Browns have some talented players. And this week, it was a highlighted and highly anticipated return of Josh Gordon. And he showed some tremendous plays. A man like this, on a team like this, you would think they would have a chance to be good or somewhat decent. No, not this team. What am I trying to say? This Cleveland team is inept, and it starts with head coach. Hugh Jackson, 1-20, what is it? I don't even know, 127, I think, in the last 2 years. I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, but he does so many things that I question. And it's the little things that we kind of overlook. It's calling a timeout when we have an incomplete pass. The clock is stopped. So he calls a timeout in the 4th quarter. We're down 9. We need timeouts. We cannot waste timeouts like that. And then we come out of the timeout, and DeShone Kizer fumbles, gets sacked by Ohio State, like MVP Joey Bosa, and fumbles the ball. You would think that at this point of the season, DeShone Kizer would actually develop because he got Josh Gordon back. Do you think he would do well? No. I've been saying it on Twitter. I've been saying it in this videos. I don't like DeShone Kizer. He seems like a great human being in person off the field, but I don't think he's a good quarterback. He's too inaccurate, and we saw that yesterday. There were too many times where he overthrew Josh Gordon, where he overthrew other receivers or underthrew receivers. Josh Gordon many times beat his defender wide open. Just all you have to do is loft it in and hit it to him in motion, which is easier said than done. But if you're playing in the NFL, you have to do that. Players like Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees. Now, I'm not trying to compare him to those, but they are able to make that play. And I know he's a rookie, but we're, 12, 13 games into the season? You need to make a pass like that. If you want to exceed in this league, you got to do that. I know he knows that, but you have to actually do it. I mean, you have a guy like Josh Gordon back, but he only has 4 catches, and some of the catches were spectacular, and he was able to get off defenders, and the way he moves is remarkable. It's something that not many wide receivers can do, and he has the potential to be a Hall of Famer, in my opinion. But we have to give him the opportunity to make plays. If you're overthrowing him, that's not on him. Or underthrowing him, it's not on him either. You got to hit him. He'll try to make those catches, but when it comes down to it, you got to hit the passes. And that's why next year I hope the Browns are able to get a veteran quarterback or someone who has more NFL experience and draft a quarterback with our number 1 pick, which is what we're expected to get. Maybe if we get another wide receiver in the offseason, that's something I'd want to do too. But that's just on me. I think we have potential to be good team with our defense with Myles Garrett. We just had injuries the last few weeks that have really hurt our defense. So hopefully next year when we look at this team and do offensive and defensive adjustments, getting players and trading for players, making moves, because when it comes down to it, it is quality over quantity. We've had, probably over 20 draft picks in the last 2 or 3 years, but none of those, 1 or 2 of those players have done well. So we have to get quality picks instead of the quantity of the picks. I know the Cleveland Browns like draft picks, but you have to be smart. You have to make good decisions. Passing on Carson Wentz, passing on Joey Bosa, trading down, keeping on trading down, and drafting players like Corey Coleman, who hasn't made an impact. That is just bad decision making. And Hugh Jackson apparently wanted Carson Wentz. So if your head coach wants a player, let him have that player. Be smart in your drafting too. Because I know it's early to talk about the NFL draft, but for me, you have to take either Josh Rosen or Baker Mayfield with that number 1 pick. That you got to make a move there. And I think if we get a veteran quarterback in the offseason to help develop him, that would be a great decision because I'm ready to move on from Deshaun Kaiser. And if you agree with me, great. If you don't agree, I completely understand as he is a rookie, but I just don't see him developing into a good NFL player. If he does, great, but I just don't see it. So thank you for watching. Thank you for letting me ramble on for this 15-minute video. If you like this video, go ahead and leave a like. If you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and hopefully the Browns can get a win sometime in the next week. We play the Packers, the Bears, the Ravens, and the Steelers. So it'll be interesting the next couple weeks, see if the Browns can get their first win. And if not, the 0-16 parade that we are having, well, don't lose and we won't have it. It's an easy thing. If you don't like the parade, don't have a losing team that goes 0-16. So thank you for watching. I'll see you guys later. Bye.